Well, we know, of course, now that Monday and Tuesday were the two hottest days ever recorded as an average temperature around our entire planet. Both days seeing records being broken as the average temperature was recorded at over 17 degrees Celsius. Just to put this in context, this includes temperatures on the equator and at the north and south poles as an average. Also, during the Northern Hemisphere summer, we're seeing very high temperatures there, partly because there's more land in the Northern Hemisphere, which, as I understand it, means that the land warms up more quickly than the ocean. Dr. Nomhle Ngwenya is an independent climate finance researcher. She joins us now. Dr. Ngwenya, thank you for coming in. I really do appreciate it. So this is the evidence that people have been expecting, that global temperatures are rising. I suppose they're also the evidence that we've known for some time that we're not going to stick to the Paris Accords and the limits the world's tried to impose on itself.
This is very much correct. Climate change is resulting in extreme-related weather events which are becoming much more frequent and much more intense, which are making climate change actually to become a little bit more unpredictable. If we look at events such as the new Global Financing Pact, which was held in France last month, we see how global leaders are realizing that we are not going to reach our 1.5 degrees Celsius as committed to COP21, but also, climate change is fast becoming a social, but also a financial risk. If you look at Christine Lagarde, president of the European Climate Bank, central bank, mentioned that over 70% of Europe's economy is highly compromised because of climate change. So climate change is becoming a massive, massive risk that we really need to start accounting for.
So, for example, we saw the flooding in Durban last year. Climate change may not have directly caused the flooding, but it makes flooding like that likely to happen more often, and that's what we need to prepare for.
Most definitely correct. So if we look at research which was done by the University of Witwatersrand and the university in partnership with the University of Bristol, we see how the KZN floods were actually a direct consequence of climate change. And what we are also having now is climate anomalies. So provinces that wouldn't particularly receive rainfall during the winter months are experiencing disruptive rainfall, which are leading to flooding. If we look at Northern Cape, even if we look at Gauteng, how we've had disruptive rainfall in the past couple of months, and this is a result of climate change really having an effect on our country.
Now, of course, we could have a very intense drought because of El Nino as well. We're supposed to be moving to a low-carbon economy, using a lot less coal. It's very contentious. Could we speed up that process? Would it be possible to do that without disrupting our economy? And when I say disrupting our economy, I really mean disrupting food supplies.
So most definitely. I mean, if we look at, even in the new Global Financing Pact, President Ramaphosa had mentioned that even with the just transition, $8.5 billion will not be efficient anymore. We're going to need about $98 billion, which will, be needed in order for us to sustainably, transition towards a low-carbon transition. But most importantly, I think what we are missing from even a government, municipal and local government level is budgeting. There is no budgeting for climate-related disasters. And this will result in more fiscal expenditures if we do not encounter or take into consideration some of the financial risks that are going to be a cause of climate change in the future.
We see huge debates, I say debates, I'm being polite, we see huge arguments about this in our country. There's some public figures who believe we're moving away from coal too quickly. This is probably dwarfed by what could happen in the United States if Donald Trump wins another term as U.S. president. Is it possible the world could actually go backwards?
I mean, we're seeing this with the Ukraine-Russia war. I mean, that was just a typical example of how, as much as we are trying to transition, a lot of the countries now, I mean, if you look at Norway, for example, Equinox has just invested, in more oil and gas investments. So as much as climate change is, hot and central, but we are having, various countries which are still using oil and gas and are still investing. And I think, there needs to be greater, in my opinion, greater transparency and accountability from organizations, as to what they are doing in order to mitigate against climate change. If we look at things such as the Task Force on Climate Financial-Related Disclosures, we are really seeing companies being forced to start reporting on what are they doing from a climate change perspective to mitigate the risks, but also to adapt in a sustainable manner.
There's so many things going on in different places, but key to all of this is what I would call global public opinion. Now, in some cases, we've seen China move away from coal and towards solar power quite quickly. Some people worry they've actually cornered the market in solar panels and electric cars, for example. In the United States, we've seen the wildfires in Canada causing massive haze in New York. I mean, a better symbol of global warming you couldn't hope for. Do you think public opinion in the countries that are the biggest polluters is actually shifting in the right direction? China has led, it's decided to take a decision. The United States, for reasons that I cannot understand, still argues about this.
So public opinion is quite interesting because we have different parties. There are parties who, support climate change and who do believe that there is climate data which can, backed by science, which can make informed choices and decisions. But we also have, extreme far right, individuals and populations who believe that climate change is actually false. So I think it is up to world leaders to try and, balance public opinion, but make sure that they, make responsible choices and demonstrate responsible leadership through the use of climate data, which is backed by science, to make informed decisions.
Dr. Nomhle Ngwenya, thank you. Independent climate finance researcher, really do appreciate the time.
Thank you.